Hello there everybody, it is me Leo, otherwise known as Freezer Bunny here on YouTube, and welcome back to another Sims 4 speed building video. So today we're speed building the SimTercontinental airport, and yes, it is an airport, you guys. How exciting is this build? I am super excited. Quick disclaimer, a friend of mine actually came up with this idea about a year ago, and we were talking about it, and a year later he still hasn't built his airport. So I figured, you know what, why not give it a go myself and see what I come up with. So the past couple of months, I have been building a lot of suburban themed builds, and I'm beginning to notice that people are starting to get tired of those kinds of builds. So I decided for this month to try to build a couple of themed builds, and this is one of them. Surprise! I'm pretty sure none of you guys expected me to build an airport, but I love building these kinds of things in The Sims 4 because, you know, it's unexpected and it's really nothing like other people has done before. So I'm really happy with how this one came out. Super proud of it. Usually the way I would do my builds is I would have a lot of discipline. I would usually kind of like have a lot of self-control and try not to overly design things, but I had a little bit of a different approach for this one because, you know, usually airports are kind of like crazy and out there and super like the cutting edge of architecture. So basically I let my imagination just run wild with this one and try to experiment a lot with different shapes and different techniques, and that is what you guys are seeing right now. You guys can see me try to experiment with how the roofing is gonna be. I do this thing where I kind of change the roof size and height in increments so that it would look really interesting and kind of almost feather-like, which is kind of like a subtle nod to what this building is because, you know, airports, it gives flight to human beings. It's, you know, it connects continents and it connects peoples and societies and civilizations with each other. And, you know, I think that airports as a structure are pretty sculptural. You know, generally airports are pretty much just like a huge open space, so there's a lot of leeway to really experiment with the shape and with the form. So that is what I wanted to do here. I really wanted to capture the essence of what an airport in real life would look like. And of course, I would not be able to do that in The Sims because of the limitations in the game. However, I did make an effort to really try my best to capture like the look and feel of what an airport would look like in real life. And basically, I narrowed it down to 3 things that I wanted to nail to get that look exactly the way I wanted to. And those 3 things are attention to detail, the layout, and the third one and most important is the proportion. Now, it's really tricky the way airports are because if you're an architect or if you're an engineer, you would know how difficult it is to actually build and design an airport, because I feel like unlike normal homes or commercial buildings, airports are more of like a combination of architecture and infrastructure. So you guys will see a lot of that actually in this build, not just the architecture of the building itself, but also the engineering of the accompanying infrastructure that comes with an airport, such as ramps, which is what you guys are seeing right now, and also tunnels, as well as the runway itself of the airport. You know, it's not just the architecture, it's really a whole ensemble that really makes this build really unique and quite challenging as well, because I had to really kind of push the game and what it's capable of to its limits. So I'm doing some unconventional techniques here with some roofing and with some, you know, some other different elements like you know, that I've never really done a lot of before, but, you know, surprisingly it came together really cohesively. That's kind of like a little bit of a pet peeve that I have. I always want to make my builds cohesive. I don't really like it, like, when I see a build and it looks like a bunch of different items just stuck together with super glue. You know, I don't really like it when you can kind of tell which items are which. I want it to feel like a whole coherent structure, and I feel like that OCD-ness comes from the fact that I am studying to become an architect, and I'm just like, okay, cohesion. So basically, there isn't a lot of color into this build. Actually, the color emphasis is actually mainly on the glass, which I really, really like. I really like how the glass plays an important role into the actual design itself. Because, you know, in real life architecture practice, we specify like what type of glass we choose. If it's double glazed, if it's, you know, if it's tinted glass, if you're going for a particular, you know, color. I've seen buildings that have like golden yellow colored glass, and, you know, that's kind of like part of the design. And that's exactly what I did here. I used a glass that had this very beautiful kind of turquoise blue color. I've never used it before, but I realized that a lot of the windows actually come in that color. So I'm using these ones that came with City Living. Very, very beautiful. Kind of reminds me a little bit of water ripples, if you guys get what I mean. So I really liked how it looked. And also, just to have a little bit of variety as well, I used some base game windows on the different parts of the building just to have some variety with the different windows. And I'm really, really happy that even the base game windows have available recolors in the same color glass that they have in City Living. I'm really, really happy that the Sims team had that hindsight to recolor all of those, because, you know, I think buildings in general usually have uniform materials. Like, it would be really weird to have a building that has like different colored glass. But yeah, also there's a lot of symmetry going on here, which is gonna be broken in just a little bit with the addition of kind of like the control tower. But yeah, there's a lot of symmetry. It's really interesting later on when we go to the floor layout. The floor plan of the two wings of the airport are actually similar. So I do something that I don't really do a lot of, and I'm gonna be talking about that a little bit more later on. But here you guys can definitely see me go for that proportion, because if you actually look at airport structures, it is pretty long and narrow. You know, and it's basically just, you know, it's basically just one really big, long, open space. And yeah, I definitely went for that length. I almost occupied this entire 64 by 64 lot in the island in Windenburg. And I was tweeting about this a couple of minutes ago, and Leander actually mentioned that this is a perfect structure for this area because, you know, the Sims don't really have a way to get to this island unless they come here by boat. They can only reach this island through air, right? So this airport would be a perfect build for this island. I didn't even think of that, but yeah, I'm really happy that people are actually pitching in their different ideas and different theories and stuff. It's really, really fun to engage with everybody else from the community. And here you guys can see the further evolution of the airport structure, because I did not have this initially in my concept, but I was looking at pictures online on airports and how they were designed, and they had this like extension tunnel thing. I don't really know what it's called, but they have these tunnels that actually reach out to the runway, and these are the ones where, you know, like the passengers would walk to get to their planes. I'm not sure what they're called, maybe bridgeways or something. The funny thing is, I've been taking up architecture for a couple of years now, but I've never really had a project where I had to design an airport. Because airports are such specialized structures, you know, it's very specialized, very multidisciplinary. So you really have to kind of like specialize on designing these kinds of buildings. However, I might not have had an actual project of an airport, but a couple of years ago in 2014, I, together with a group of my classmates, had a project where we had to convert an airport site into a expo site, basically. So, that project kind of involved me working on an airport, right? So we did some computations because part of our proposal was to relocate the airport. And basically we kind of had like, I don't recall specifically the numbers, but basically like an international airport has to handle millions of people on a yearly basis. How crazy is that? I think our computations was like 2 to 5 million, and that is like a crazy amount, like, right? Like that's like unfathomable. 2 million people, like how insane is that? So that's why the layout, as I mentioned earlier, is particularly important, because you're going for the most efficient layout possible in order to not waste time and in order to really utilize the best possible layout for those 2 million people. Because, people are rushing everywhere, it could easily get disorganized. So, the layout is super, super important. And that is something that I really tried to figure out. Like, I literally busted my brain trying to figure out, like, what the appropriate layout for this airport would be. And I think I ended up with something that's relatively realistic. Once again, proportionally, it's not the most realistic airport because, we just don't have space for it. I'm already building this on the largest lot. So, yeah. But in terms of the layout, the good thing is that most airports have a very similar layout. Usually on the upper level, you have the check-in area and the departure. And then usually on the lower level is where you would have the arrival area and the luggage stuff. So yes, that is something that I also followed because of course I wasn't, I'm not smart enough to come up with my own airport layout. Like literally people spend years trying to figure that out. The perfect airport layout. Speaking of layout, over here we have a really, really important aspect of every airport, and that is the metal detector. Oh my gosh, I was really, really happy that I came up with these because they made the airport look so much more realistic. These metal detectors are kind of like an eyesore, but I'd rather have them obstructing my view of the airport, because for me, the most important thing is security. Oh my gosh, you guys, terrorism is like, it's just crazy. Like, you don't know. I don't even want to get into that, but basically, security is like a main priority in airport design, actually in design of any structure. So yes, having metal detectors are just so important. And yeah, we have a couple right here for, for the guards to check the incoming passengers. So yeah, I think it added a whole new level of realism. Also, I love how those windows are kind of like, I don't know, I love how the windows play an actual role into the design of the airport because I chose such beautiful windows. I didn't really have to, make an extra effort to kind of beautify the interior, even though you guys will see that it did come out really well in the end. But I did actually not overwhelm the design, if you guys get what I mean. I tried to simplify everything and I tried to make everything as streamlined as possible because, usually airports are not really like, they don't really have that much furniture. So, I just kept consistent with that and just, let the architecture speak for itself. So yes, I've also discovered a bunch of really awesome kind of like poster things. I don't really know what these are. These are like ads. But yeah, they're really nice and they remind me so much of things that you would find in airports. So yes, I threw in a bunch of those. I actually used a lot of those, quite a bit. So you guys will be seeing more of those later on. But yeah, it looks like right now we are working on kind of like the waiting area. Oh my gosh. The technical term for this area escapes me. I kind of forgot. But it's kind of like the waiting area where people who've already checked in kind of wait for their flight. And yeah, it's over here near the tunnel area. And once again, I will throw in a bunch of like metal detectors here just to have that maximum security feel. And also, you guys will notice that I chose this really interesting rug. It's not something that I would usually go for, this carpet texture thing. It's not something that I would usually go for, but I really, really liked it because that kind of carried on the design that we had on some of the windows that I chose. It kind of has that ripple effect. And because I chose those rugs, I feel like it gave the interiors kind of like a little bit more of a retro effect. You guys will see, I also throw in a bunch of different items that further give a more kind of like retro feel. I'm so excited to actually see those because it's so psychedelic, really, really awesome looking. But yes, over here, just, you know, placing in a bunch of stations for checkers and for guards and for people who just check your like tickets and stuff. I don't even know what they're called. I actually travel quite a lot on a plane. Like I go at least once a year. I fly at least once a year, I guess is how I should probably say it, because of course I live in the Philippines, which is a country of over 7,000 islands. And in order to get from one island to the other, you would have to take a plane. Otherwise, I mean, your alternative is to take a boat, but taking a boat literally takes days. So the most practical way to go is to just go by plane, and you know, it'll take you hours instead of days, which is the more practical option if you have the money to do it, because flying is quite expensive. Anyway, there you go. You guys can see that I threw in these really interesting gradient ombre columns and stuff. I don't know, they add this like kind of retro futuristic accent, which I really liked. Also, quick disclaimer, I will be replacing those paintings off camera. I just felt like they looked a little bit too cartoony. So I will actually replace those with some wall sculptures instead, because I feel like there's already so many details that are around. Like I really, really like those blue columns. I really, really like them. They look so retro. I'm so in for it. Like it's really awesome. Reminds me of something that would exist in the 80s. I don't know why. But yes, also I felt like it was really important to have like an entertainment space, so I did put like a TV corner where the passengers waiting for their flight could have a little bit of entertainment. Now, this is the point where I actually just copied this room because like I said earlier, it's completely symmetrical to the other side, so I just basically copied it and just chugged it in over there. And yeah, I don't normally do this because usually my builds have such diverse furnishings, but for this instance I felt like it was kind of appropriate because usually airports look the same everywhere you look. So that's kind of what I did there. I just copied it. I had to flip around some of the items, but yeah, it's exactly the same as the other one on the other side. So yeah. This area right here that we're working on right now is kind of like the arrival area. I mean, you know, it is the arrival area. So, yes, there are a couple of, what are those things called? I forgot what those things are called. Those things that like rotate, that have your luggage. Oh my gosh, the name escapes me once again. Such escapism. But yeah, I made those like turning turnstiles, turning ramps. I don't know, I'm not gonna spend so much time trying to figure it out, but you guys get what I mean. It's those things where you would like wait for your luggage to get delivered and stuff before you leave the airport. I tried to create those and it was quite a challenge to create actually, because we don't have that many items that would actually work for that kind of thing. But I was able to figure out some techniques here using these display tables that came with Get to Work. And yes, I will actually use the one-tile ones because they're more flexible and malleable. They're easily connectable. That statement sounded so weird. But yeah, I have two of these like conveyors. Oh my gosh, thank God. figured it out. I have 2 of these conveyor belts, but yeah. I'll only show you guys the one because I had to edit out the other one because the video was going too long. I had to edit out like 5 hours of footage, you guys. It took me 5 hours to do this build, which is actually the normal length that it takes me to do a speed build. But I really like the effect of the conveyors because I feel like they further add an aspect of realism. I also discovered a really weird glitch where some of the indoor plants had some really weird lighting. There you go, you guys will see me chuck in a couple of like indoor plants and they just have such a weird lighting. Like, even though I would directly place lights on top of them, they still were kind of like poorly lit. So I just ignored it and I just pretended like nothing was wrong. So yeah, anyway. Also, if you guys are hearing some noise in the background, there is a university concert happening outside my apartment. Perfect time for a rock concert, right? I live right across like the university that I go to, and basically literally across my place is an open field, which is where they would usually have like their rock concerts and stuff, and I can hear it. And what's really crappy about rock concerts is that they never end. They keep going until like the morning. So I'm like, okay, you know what, I'm not gonna wait for this because I waited for the video to process, by the way, for like 2 hours. Like I said, 5 hours of footage. I had to like compress it to like I don't know, like 30 to 40 minutes. And also, you guys, it's been a long day for me. Oh my gosh, complaining alert, beware. There's gonna be a little bit of complaining happening in a little bit. But actually, it's been a long day for me. I've been up since like 5 a.m. preparing for an exam. I had midterms today. Surprise! I'm still in school. I had midterms and I had an exam on my taxation class, and the crappy thing about taxation is that you have so much stuff to memorize. So I was literally like up in the wee hours of the morning trying to get my notes together, trying to review and trying to prepare as much as I can. I mean, I think it went well though. My scores were okay. There were definitely more than I was expecting. I didn't really have high expectations because it is me after all. So I didn't really have high expectations because I am like the most academically challenged person ever. It's really hard for me to excel in academics. I don't really know why. But anyway, I digress. Back to the build. Over here, we're actually working on kind of like the Wi-Fi area, or like, you know what? No, it's not Wi-Fi area because, you know, modern day airports would have Wi-Fi all over. But this area, it's kind of like the charging station, I guess. Yes, it's the charging station. And I actually looked for like a socket if we had sockets in The Sims 4, but we didn't. So I just went ahead and not put one. And also we have this really tiny space underneath the control tower, and basically what I did is I made kind of like a really little tiny VIP area. I mean, I was still able to fit in a love seat and 2 lounge chairs, so that's pretty cool. I mean, I really like how this VIP lounge came out because of those chairs that I used. I feel like it gave the lounge a lot more personality, and I really like that one lamp as well. But you know what? I really like this lounge. It's really basic, to be honest, but it has great views of the airports and the surrounding area, and yeah, it turned out really well. I felt like an airport should have a VIP area because, you know, you never know when you would have to entertain presidents and really important people. So yes, another bunch of stuff that I had to cut out. There are some waiting areas in the front of the airport. There's really nothing in them. There's just a bunch of like benches and stuff. So really nothing of importance to show to you guys. So I just went ahead and edited those out because they were just taking so much time. But yeah, you guys, literally, like, there was this one part. of the video, which I also had to edit out as well, but it was me laying out the pathways later on. But oh my gosh, it literally took me an hour and 30 minutes to lay out the pathways alone, and that is a crazy amount of time. Some people can build entire speed builds for an hour and 30 minutes, and I was just literally laying out the pathways. I'm just like, oh my gosh, like what? I'm like the most least time efficient person ever. Anyway, back to the builds. So we are now working on the runway, and I don't know what these tube tunnels are called. I mean, you know, every time we would go on a plane, we would just call it a tube. So we're gonna call it that. It's basically a tube that extends to the plane so that the plane doesn't have to go too close to the building itself, because that might get pretty dangerous and pretty risky. But yeah, I have some extended tubes that sounded really weird, but yes, 2 of them actually, because there's gonna be 2 airplanes over here waiting for their passengers. And this pattern on the runway, I actually copied from stuff that I've seen online. So yes, it's kind of like just a bunch of arrows. Originally, the arrows, I used these flat fences, and then I realized that Spa Day actually came with lit, you know, lit floor, like things, I don't know, floor lights, I guess, and I used those floor lights instead of these, you know, instead of these arrows, because I felt like those were better. It was such a tough time figuring out how to light up the runway, because it came out really dark in the end. No matter what I did, it still came out really dark. So I was just like, you know what, let's go ahead and have these floor lights that came with Spa Day, so that even though the runway itself was quite dark, the pilot can still see where he's going, because literally, I mean, who could miss that? That is like a, you know, that's pretty clear, if I do say so myself. And yeah, I'm really happy with how it turned out. It will have a little bit better lighting eventually, so yes. This is such a satisfying feeling when you're trying to demolish everything and you can just do it all in one go. So basically the first layer of fences, I was just like, you know what? Demolish, boom. So yeah, that was such a satisfying compilation. I remember this one video of the Fine Brothers where they had to like react to like a satisfying compilation thing. That was really fun to watch. Oh, you would never expect to have so much satisfaction in the simplest things, right? But yes, here we go, our 2 airplanes, which are scaled a little bit larger than what they're supposed to be, but those are the only available airplanes in the game. So yeah, I just did whatever I wanted with them, and throwing in a lot more lights. I was particularly meticulous actually with the lighting design for this build, so you guys can see me really take my time with the lighting design, especially for the exterior. I really wanted the lighting to complement and to enhance the architecture, because I went for such a sculptural design. You know, I really wanted to bring those out through the lighting, and that's why I strategically placed the lights so that it would bring out the beauty of the sculpture aspect, I guess, of the whole airport, and it actually looked really nice. Also, the dance floors that came with get-together / skylights actually emit a beautiful blue glow light on the roof area, and that kind of inspired me to really kind of do something different and actually incorporate some colored lights in this build. So on the outside, there's gonna be some different color lightings. It's mostly gonna be blue and cool colors, but I don't usually do that often because I keep forgetting actually, because you know, you have to move in your Sims to actually do something with the lighting. But yeah, I will be doing that in this build because I really wanted the lights to bring out the architecture and really make it come alive. And right now is the part where we are working on the pathways, and this is a parking lot obviously, and initially I was gonna go for like straight parking spaces, but I decided to just go for diagonal ones because it just looked a lot more interesting, even though doing it diagonally would mean that I would only have enough space for less cars. I still think that the diagonals look really awesome, and I did try my best to get the proportions as realistic as possible, but yes, the circulation aspect of the cars, it might be a little bit too tight for the cars to maneuver around, but you know what, this is The Sims 4 and I really tried my best to make it feel real, and I think that's the most important thing. So yes, we actually have standard measurements for that. I believe, you know what, I'm not gonna go too technical. Okay, you know what, technically, I think the measurement for a parking slot for a car is 3 by 5 meters, and yes, we use the metric system, so just yeah. And you guys can see me jumping on into the video. I mean, you guys can see the video just jumping from one part to another because a lot of the stuff that I had to edit out was just pathways and pavements because it just took me so long. So yes, I also used those really interesting kind of like futuristic alien, I don't know, those futuristic alien, lights, I guess, lampposts, and they look really nice actually. Surprisingly, they do complement the architecture of the airport, so you know, they came out really nice. And over here we have the sign of the actual airport itself, and also a couple of flags. There's actually quite a lot of flags. There's a bunch attached on the structure of the airport itself, and there's also 3 on the front, because I'm not sure if this applies to every country, but in my country, I actually learned this from one of my architecture mentors. Public buildings are required to have a visible flagpole, so that's why I actually had to design a hotel, and that's where he really hammered into me the importance of like the layouts and the importance of the flagpoles and things like that. I really learned a lot from that professor. He's really awesome. I should honestly apply to his firm, you know, when I graduate. Like, I should probably that would be really awkward though, because you know, architecture professors are practicing architects and they own their own architectural firms, right? And how awkward would it be to work for your former professor? Even though if you have like a good relationship with your professor, I mean, that would kind of be not a problem, but I mean, everybody kind of like has a love-hate relationship with their professor. I don't know. Some people probably just admire their professors. In our case, because our professors really pressured us and gave us a hard time in college, we kind of have a love-hate relationship with them. I mean, it's more love than hate, but you guys, literally blood, sweat, and tears in college. You guys don't know how much I cried in front of my class because it's really embarrassing, but when you're kind of like humiliated, when your professor just hates your work and when he's really open to it, and when he's threatening you with failure, you just break down. Thankfully, some of my classmates were like really supportive. And you know what? Like, all of us had a mental breakdown in that class. Thankfully, I was not one of the worst off. Because some people just have like crazy mental breakdowns and just like, oh my gosh, how crazy is that? Also, I did some modification with the control tower where I added like a glass roof to it. It's the glass roof that came with Get Together, and yes, I really like it. I'm really happy that I added that glass roof. Once again, it made it look a little bit more retro because it reminded me of like some 80s buildings, but it's fine. It reminded me of like some postmodern structures. But one particular detail that I also learned from that professor that I was talking to you guys earlier is that in the highest point of a structure or of a building, there is a requirement to have a red light. So for the control tower, I put a spire, and on top of the spire, there is a tiny red light. And I'm pretty sure you guys have probably observed that as well. In every like skyscraper that you see, there's always like a tiny red light on top of it. And that is to make sure that the planes don't accidentally bump into it when they're flying over it. So yeah, another tidbit of technical information that I really wanted to share with you guys. A lot of you guys really appreciated the technical information, so Yes, I feel like my ramblings and random topics are making, are making sense, I guess. At least people appreciate them, and I really, really appreciate that as well. The feeling is mutual. For the landscaping, I just kept it really simple and threw in a bunch of outdoor lighting just to, light things up at night. But it looks like, you guys, that is going to be it for the speed build. That was faster than I was expecting, actually. I don't know why. I probably was just too into the commentary and just my random topics altogether that I lose track of time. So yes. Also, the airport itself is available for download on the gallery, and all of the links for that will be in the description as usual. But like I said, that is going to be it for the speed build, so I'm going to go ahead and wrap up my commentary right here, okay guys? Once again, please don't forget to hit that like, favorite, and subscribe button if you guys had fun watching this video, because it does help out the channel a lot, okay? You all have an awesome, awesome, awesome day. Thank you guys so much for watching. Enjoy the rest of the video, and I will see you guys next time. Bye bye!